What's up guys, Ricky here, back with another video. Today I have all of the COPIC Blending Trios for you guys to see. So we have pack 1, which is the greens. We have pack 2, which is blues. Pack 3, which is kind of violets and purple. We have pack 4, which is kind of red oranges. We have pack 5, which is the yellows. Pack 6, kind of skin tone oranges. And pack 7, browns. So we'll be kind of going over testing out all of these packs for you guys to see. I'll be also comparing them with the Colorless Blender, so you can see whether it's worth it for you to pick this one up also. So let's begin. So we can start off with pack 1, which is going to be the greens. So we have G40, G94, and G99. So these COPIC Blending Trios are the sketch variant. So they have the brush tip as well as the chisel tip. So let's go ahead. So this is going to be G40. So you can see that's the brush tip, and this would be the chisel tip. So let me zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. All right. Next we have G94. So this is going to be the brush tip. And this will be the chisel tip. So a little bit darker. Next we have G99. So brush tip. And we then have the chisel tip. So I've marked this X as kind of like a dividing thing, so we can go ahead and gradually try to blend these two. So I'll test that out without the COPIC Blender and then with the COPIC Blender for a second. So this will be without the COPIC Blender. So we can go ahead and start off with kind of a light, and then we'll do G94, so a little bit next to it. This is a little bit of like a rough paper. I think it's 60-pound weight, and we can go ahead and kind of get in between with the G40, and then this will be the G99. Then we can go back over it with the G94 to get that in between tone right there. So that's without the blender. So here is with the blender. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak the paper beforehand. And you wanna do this fast because since they're alcohol based, you don't want the alcohol to dry before you get there. So here's the 99, so we need to go ahead and do 94. And then we get to the 99, so it's a little bit easier to get these to blend. And so in between, I'm doing basically the in-between values to get that blend there. So not too much difference. It's a little bit hard to see on camera, I can see, but there's a little bit more of like a watercolor feel, especially when you're using the COPIC Blender. So this is Colorless Blender, and it's 0. This has got to be one of the most poorly named art materials. It's not a blender. You don't go after the hand and blend the two. It actually will make the whatever color you're applying a little bit lighter. This is kind of like a mixing tool that goes and gets applied beforehand, at least in my experience. Alright, so that's basically the greens. Next, we'll talk about the blues. So for the blues, we have B12, B14, and B18. So we'll go ahead and start off with B12. This is going to be the brush tip, and then chisel. Here is B14, brush tip, and then chisel. So pretty awesome. And then finally we have B18, so the darkest one. That's the brush tip, and then we have the chisel. Alright, so let's try to mix these two, or mix these three. So we have B12. Apply that light coat. Then we'll kind of move on to the B14. We'll go a pack, and as it's slowly now drying, we're going to apply the light coat again. Then we'll do the B18, so the darkest one. And then we'll go apply B14 in between. So there's your gradient there without the colorless blender. So with the colorless blender, we'll do it to this side. Now we'll coat the paper a little bit. Here is your B12. All right. Then we're gonna have your B14 mixing in between. And we'll go over back with B12. And then we'll go over with B18, and then back with B14. So a little bit of a more watery color feel, as we mentioned earlier, but yeah, hopefully you should be able to see the difference. We can zoom in so you guys can see that you start seeing a little bit more of the paper grit, especially on my paper. So this is 60-pound paper, so it's not too heavy, but it's not too light. As you can see, it should bleed through a bit, so keep that in mind. You might want to have like a scratch paper underneath. So that's the blues. So next we're going to be testing Blender Pack 3, which is going to be the purple and violets. So that's going to be R63, R66, and 69. So we'll go ahead and start with 63. So move this to the side, zoom out a bit. Alright, so this is going to be RV63, sorry. So you can see this is a little bit of a pink rather than the purple. Oh, and the chisel tip. So pretty solid right there. This is going to be RV66. Alright, and we have then chisel tip. Sorry, I'm blending these already. Alright, and then we have RV69. This is almost like a deep purple mixed with a little bit of a red. And then we have chisel tip. I'm filming with an HDR enabled camera, so if you have an HDR viewing device, you should turn that on to see the best color accuracy and representation. So we'll have now blending. So we have R63. Okay. And then we then have the RV66. And we can go back with the 63. And then we can do the 69. And then back with the 66 to get that blending effect. So that looks pretty good. So that's without the colorless blender. So we'll go ahead and now apply the blender. And we'll start off with RV63. Then we'll move to 66. Go back to 63. We'll go to 69 now. And then back to 66. So there is the non-blender and blender blender part. So that's basically the purples. I really like this purple pack. It's pretty good for adding details to kind of like the shadow of trees and things like that, so it works really, really well. Next, we're going to do pack 4, which is going to be the red and kind of like red oranges. So this is going to be R12, R14, and R17. So we'll go ahead and move this up a bit. So we'll start off with R12. So this almost looks a little bit orangey. So that's R12. This is that chisel tip. Then we'll do R14. So there's quite a big jump from the next two. So R14 and R17. But here's the chisel tip for R14. And then R17, if I can remember correctly. Oh, never mind. Okay, so these two might look the same on camera. They're pretty close in relationship to each other. And then there's the chisel tip. So we can go ahead and start blending. So we have the R12. And then we'll go R14. Go in the middle with R12, and then we'll do R17 at the end, and we'll go in the middle with R14. So there's a pretty good gradient for the reds. Now we can then try it with the Colorless Blender. So go ahead and coat the paper with our Colorless Blender. And we'll start off with the R12, and you already know. Next is going to be R14. So pretty awesome there. We'll go in between with our R12. And then we then have our R17. And we'll go in between with our R14. So no blender and colorless blender. So hopefully you should be able to see some sort of difference. It's a little bit more watercolory on this side. All right, and so next we're going to open up pack 5. So pack 5 is going to be our yellows. So I really like this pack. We're going to start off with Y00, then Y13, and Y18. They're upside down. All right, there we go. So Y yellow, yellow. This one is pretty light, so hopefully you'll be able to see it on camera. So there's that, and then the chisel tip. So now we have Y13. It's a little bit darker. And the chisel tip. Now we have Y18. And the chisel tip. So this is a little bit more orangey. If you're thinking about like a normal highlighter, Y13 would be like a standard highlighter that's a little bit less saturated. I guess that analogy doesn't really work. Okay, forget about the highlighter. So we'll go ahead and now start blending. So we'll start off with Y00 or U. We'll start off with and then next we'll go to Y13. We'll head back with Y00. And then we'll do Y18. Add a little bit of orange tone in there. And then we'll mix it together with our Y13. So that's a really awesome gradient. I like that. I'm running out of space here, so we'll go ahead and do the Colorless Blender right next to it. So there's our coat. We have our Y00, Y13, go back with Y00. And we'll then finish off with Y18. And go back with Y13. So there's the gradient. Compared to the other colors, these two, whether you're using the Colorless Blender or not, looks a little bit more consistent compared to, again, this one looks a little bit more watery color. So now we can actually see the drying time. So the greens and blues are starting to dry very nicely. So you can see there's a little bit more of a grade with the Colorless Blender rather than trying to blend yourself. You can actually go back now that these are relatively dry to kind of increase that gradient a little bit better. So you can keep on going over it until you get just a perfect gradient for whatever you're doing. All right, so next we're gonna do pack 6, which is going to be the skin tone oranges. This is an interesting pack. So it has E95, E97, oops, and E99. So tea orange, deep orange, and baked clay. So we'll start off with a brush tip of E95. So it looks like that. Chisel tip, you already know. E97, slightly darker. Chisel tip there. And then we have baked clay. If I remember, this one's very brown. Okay, yeah, there we go. And there's chisel tip. So pretty awesome. So now we can start blending. So we'll start with 95, go with 97, go back to 95, and then we'll go to our baked clay. It's going to be 99, and head back with our 97. So there's your blending gradient. I really like this for kind of earth colors. Mixing these two are really awesome. So let's go ahead and try Blender. Go apply the blender underneath. Alright, so we start off with 95. We'll go to 97. Back to 95. And then we'll go to 99. And then back to 97. So there you go. Not too bad. Next pack, and the last pack in the blending trios, is going to be pack 7, and that's going to be our browns. So we have, in this pack, we have E70, E74, and E79. So cashew, cocoa brown, and ash rose. I really like ash rose. So here's E70. This is almost like a really beautiful gray, but on the brown side. And there's the chisel tip. Then we have 74. There we go. Chisel tip. And this is 79. And here's chisel tip. So that's what that looks like. Maybe a bit closer so you're able to see. I guess I don't have too much room here, so I'm going to move it to this side. So we'll start off with the blending with the ash rose, so E70. Then we'll move to 74. We'll go back to ash rose, get in between, and we'll go to cashew, E79, get that there, and then back to 74 to get the in-between. So So there's our gradient there. With the Colorless Blender, go ahead and coat the surface a bit. Start off with ash rose. So 70, 74. And we'll do, oh, forgot, back to ash rose. Can't forget the essentials. All right, and then we go back to 79. And then 74 in between. So there's that. So we'll zoom out a bit so you can see all the colors. So there's basically all the packs in the Blending Trios series. They work really well. If you're looking at paper bleed, you can see whether you're using the blender or not, the bleed's probably the same. You might want to stick a piece of paper underneath, but yeah, so there's all the Blending Trio sets. I hope you like this video. I'm going to be coming out with 2 extra videos in this Copic series. It'll be the earth tones and the Copic kind of grays, and yeah, basically all during the sketch series. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.